Hey folks, how you doing? So happy it's Thursday once again, 3rd of April 2025. So this is not an April Fool's video, and the um, title of the video is not clickbait. Right? If you read the title of the video, it's did the head of Iran's Republican Guard, the IRGC, did he actually spy for Israel, and did he defect to Israel, and did he do all these things? For how long? What was he actually involved in? Was he in fact part of planning Hamas's former leader Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah's former leader Hassan Nasrallah and other top figures that Israel has eliminated over the recent months and years? The answer is a no. The man named Ismail Qasim, or whatever, however he pronounces it, whatever his name is, the head of the IRGC, did not defect to Israel. He did not spy for Israel, as far as anybody knows. And that was a prank post originally posted on X by Dr. Ellie David, who has a not insignificant size following of, I think, around 700,000 people or something. And he's known to be quite a bit of a jokester. And that was his April Fool's joke. And there were comments or whatever that the journalist who reported the story was a journalist named Shakran. Well, you know Hebrew, you know that Shakran means liar, the word Shakran. So even put in, right? And then he even posted beneath the post, like he screenshotted the time and date of the post, even though it was obviously in the actual post itself, which was the 1st of April, 2025. And he posted that, like circled in red, to tell people this is obviously a joke. And in the post where he put that screenshot, he just put a clown emoji, like a clown face emoji, to remind people, to let people know, yeah, this is an April Fool's prank, but this was obviously after it had already gone quote-unquote viral. And the reason I mention this 2 days after the fact is because even now there are people still spreading this misinformation, which is hilarious. But somebody should be at least saying somewhere that no, it's, and there are people in the comments who say, yeah, funny April Fool's joke, and it got around LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all the usual socials, right? In fact, some months ago, by the way, there was already a rumor that he had done that. Talking like back in the, like right after Nasrallah was eliminated, right around that time. There was rumors that he had been eliminated. Right, there were jokes like Ismail Qasim is now Wasmail Qasim or whatever. And instead of being Ismail, he was Wasmail, basically. But those were also false, and there were other rumors that he'd also gone to Israel instead of being killed. Rumors that's been circulating that he had been disappeared for questioning on suspicion of a spy, and then other ones said no, he wasn't arrested on suspicion of being a spy. He just defected, and Israel took him safe to Israel. All those were rumors. Okay, the guy is the head of the IRGC. He's not an Israeli spy, as anyone who knows him can attest to. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that about any top spy, is that you don't know until you know. And maybe Iran has their suspicions and doubts about him. Who knows? But the fact is, according to what is known, the latest information about that man Ismail Qasim is still the head of the IRGC, and he is not considered by Iran or Israel to be a spy for Israel. And he is in Iran or wherever they send him. I'm sure he goes to Lebanon on a fair number of occasions because, well, he has, and I'm sure he'll continue to do that to strategize with people in Lebanon and Hezbollah, etc., because they've done that for decades. Now, whether they've relented a little bit and sort of pulled back from their more aggressive posture, given Israel's pretty aggressive response towards their military attacks against Israel over the last years, right, with the whole pager thing, and then the walkie-talkies a couple of days later, and then the pure devastation that Israel has wrought upon Hezbollah's arsenal and personnel and infrastructure, and then the very strategic and well-coordinated targeting of Iranian assets that could threaten Israel or Israel's ability to take out Iran's more advanced and dangerous systems and assets. All of that together has surely given Iran at least a moment's pause. I don't know how long that moment will last. For all you know, it's already well over. It's probably over. But, I'm sure the last several months, they were a little bit on chill mode in terms of the crazy shit they had to say or do against Israel because they didn't want to draw further response from Israel while the irons were hot, so to speak, because that would have surely brought much more devastating consequences. And even crazy Iran, as crazy as they are, and they are crazy, even crazy Iran is not going to, generally speaking, want to make a situation that's so bad even worse. There's no way. There's no way, dude. Let's see. There's no freaking way. Huh. Anyway, so at the moment, Israel continues to be in a state of war with the Hamas in Gaza and with the Hezbollah in South Lebanon, even though there's technically there isn't really a ceasefire happening in South Lebanon, but there's technically some kind of mechanism supposedly in place where when Israel spots something or detects something, if it's in violation of the ceasefire agreement, Israel has some kind of liaison, but it's a committee that I don't think exists yet because it was never formally set up. But maybe they have it, who knows, they just don't report it, with the French and the British and the Americans, mainly led by the French. But pretty much Israel has just been taking out targets directly whenever they spot violations of that agreement. And there are still occasional attacks and attempted attacks by people in South Lebanon. Now, the latest round of rockets that came firing at Israel from that area, interestingly enough, I mean, not interesting in the sense of, oh, let's do more of that. No. From a legalistic point of view, interestingly enough, they were fired at Israel from north of the Litani River. Now, if you're not familiar with that and the significance of that, it means, right, that the assets are technically shot from beyond the so-called buffer zone that Israel demands that Hezbollah maintains together with them. So, like, that way the forces of the Hezbollah are not supposed to get very close to Israel. Of course, the Litani River is quite close to Israel, up by Metula. Right? It's nowhere near 20 kilometers away. It literally runs right by it. The only difference is that, the elevations make it harder for that, a little bit harder for that, but it doesn't make it impossible. It's like they certainly have arsenal, and have had for many decades, arsenal that can go, across that border. That's not a problem. But yeah, the topography matters a lot. But still, like, the Litani River is only a border that's 20 kilometers away from the northern border of Israel, along kind of the south part of the northern border, right? The finger of Israel, as they call it, the finger, and the Golan are obviously much further north. Right? They extend much further north than the sort of border that's just north of Nahariya, right, by Rosh Hanikra, right, that extends east from Rosh Hanikra into the inland, right, until it gets to the finger, and then extends north. And so the Litani River doesn't just happen to follow the map of Israel 20 kilometers to the north exactly. And even if it did, right, it doesn't happen to keep a 20-mile buffer from the northern areas of Israel, like the finger. But if you don't know what the finger is, look it up on a map. Let's look up the Israeli map and look up what is the finger of Israel. And you'll see an area of the map. And so, this is a violation of the agreement that they're firing at Israel from beyond the Litani River. Like, just because they moved north of the Litani River does not give them the right to attack Israel. Israel never said, yeah, you guys can keep shooting rockets at us. Now, in theory, yeah, they can do whatever they want because they're in their own country. And we can't really, Israel can't really stop them from pushing a button. However, that also means that they cannot expect Israel to not respond if Israel so chooses. So when people in Hezbollah and throughout Lebanon try to make a big deal of the fact that Israel has 5 tiny little guard outposts in South Lebanon, that's the reason why. It's so they can react quickly to any threats in South Lebanon and extend further north if they need to, like reach areas further north. B, this is a clear example of the Hezbollah trying to create a loophole. Saying, oh, well, we fired at you, but not from south of the Litani, so that's legitimate. No. The idea of a ceasefire is you cease fire. You stop shooting at each other. Right? One side violates that. The other side has the right to respond. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should. That's a matter of politicians to decide in the context of any given situation. I'm all for the you should respond camp, usually. But there are some times when a little bit of nuance can be helpful. Not always, but sometimes. And generally speaking, in the muddled East, nuance is not exactly their strongest suit, at least when it comes to the Islamic extremists. And I said extremists, okay? I have no problem with people who are Muslim, obviously. Living in Israel, you live among Jews and Christians and Muslims, millions of Muslims, right? We are, in fact, the only country in this area that is this integrated and open and free. And it's important to remember that. And it's important to recognize the incredible contributions that the Muslim minority has made in this country. Why? Because they're our brothers and sisters, literally, as citizens. And they have every right to not just live here in peace like we do, but to thrive as we do. And many of them do. And many of them reach very high levels in society, from being very successful at business or in medicine or in law or in politics or in the courts or in the army or in any walk of life you can think of, right? Education, you name it. There are, and as there should be, people at the top level of society in Israel across any sector, right, that are Muslim, just like there are Jews, as it should be, and just as there are Christians, as it should be, okay, and just as there are Druze, as it should be. Now, of course, there aren't as many Druze who are at the top level of all these things, because there are far fewer people who are Druze. There aren't as many Christians who are at the top level of all these things in Israel, because there are far less Christians than Muslims, right? But generally speaking, communities here are fairly well represented proportionally, from government all the way down to every niche of the private sector, right? Is it perfect? No. Is there room for improvement? Yes. Do we need to have a DEI program to make sure that it's improved better? Israel doesn't need that. Why? Well, because Israel's already, right, fairly well integrated. And, in some ways, I would argue Israel has a very strong system of connecting people. In some ways, it doesn't really matter. It's very off topic from the news, but Israel has a very strong system of connecting people if you are connected to it. Now, the downside is if you're not, then you can literally be left out to wither and die on the vine. And I'm not joking, right? So there's a few words for that, even, and a few different concepts about it, but it's very real. It's a very strong part of the culture. If you've ever heard of protexia or combina or branja, all these things are very strong in the local culture, and they're all basically different ways of, combina is like, what's your combination? What's your method? What's your system? What's the puzzle you put together to get, if you have a connection, okay? A combina is like, who's your connection to get you into all the, the exclusive whatever it is that you're trying to get into. Right? Protexia is like your protection, like you have somebody on the inside, or do you have somebody with a significant reputation in the sphere of influence you're trying to impact, or do you have, some other kind of quote unquote protection from some other key opinion leader, if you will, that can make sure that you're protected and that your interests are taken care of. Right? And Branja is like your social kind of network. Kind of like who do you hang with? Who are the folks, your friends that can help you get connected to different things, events, places, people, jobs, whatever it might be. Now, it's fairly easy for people who are born and raised here to develop such things if they are socially skilled, socially active. But if they're not, if they tend to be more introverted, then it can be quite difficult for them to connect, and that can make it quite difficult for them to succeed. Luca. Hey, buddy boy. Hey, buddy boy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. How you doing, man? Booker Orr. See ya, buddy. He's such a great dog. Oh, my God. It's amazing. This an amazing dog. It's a great dog. that I've known since he's a tiny puppy, and he's super friendly with me and mine. He was tiny when they got him, and now he's huge for his type of dog. He's amazing. Anyway, good dog. It's fun to see. So yeah, so connections, protections, networks, all those kind of things, they matter significantly in this country, and you can certainly get them if you're socially adept. If you're not, it's going to be a lot harder to get along. And even if you are socially adept, but you happen to live in a place where there's just not a lot of relevant opportunity, it can be quite difficult to get the connections you need and do the things you need to do. But that said, again, that's very off topic. I don't want to delve down the road. There are solutions for all these things, even if they're not easy. Sometimes. I want to stay focused real quick as I wrap it up. Right? So again, the rumors of Ismail Qasim being, is it Qasim or Nasim? I don't remember. I think it's Qasim. Anyway, whatever. The guy who runs the IRGC is reportedly still the guy who runs the IRGC. Even the dogs of war are not happy about it, but it's true. And he's still the bad guy in charge of that most devastating and terrifying units of the Iranian armed forces. When I say terrifying, I mean to the Iranian people mostly, but also to their victims abroad. You know, you got to remember, these are the guys that supply and train and coordinate with and provide support to places, you know, people like Hezbollah terrorists, right, and other groups. Right? They reportedly trained Hamas and their Al-Naqba or whatever force, the Nukba force, to plan their October 7th attacks. So they are not a force to be laughed at or ignored. They certainly have their lethal capabilities, and Israel takes them seriously because we have to. And they are, after all, the main protection system that the Ayatollahs use to remain in power. And it will take removing them to remove the Ayatollahs, or it will take turning them to lead a coup against the Ayatollahs, because there's no other way you're going to get rid of these Ayatollahs. Okay, that's it for now, folks. Talk to you later. Peace.